guys, thanks for joining me again on my YouTube channel. I am Cheriel Brown. I'm the owner of Third Person Omniscient Productions, and I do these YouTube videos because I like to talk about movies in terms of the scripts and what the screenwriters did, and talk about the elements of screenwriting like characterization, dialogue, scene construction, all the different things that go into making a script. So, as some of you may be aware of, last week from November 16th to November 22nd was Alcohol Awareness Week in the UK. And in honor of that, I watched the movie Flight yesterday. And if you guys remember, Flight was a movie that came out back in 2012 that was starring Denzel Washington as the character Whip Whitaker, who was a pilot who was basically trying to get through a plane crash that he was piloting, and the conflict comes from the plane crash, and according to him, it was because the plane fell apart. But while the plane did fall apart in the air, he was also drunk on alcohol and high on cocaine. So when the crash happens, the NTSB gets involved, and it's discovered that his alcohol level was high, 0.24, and that he also was showing cocaine in his blood levels, and that could have possibly sent him to prison. So he was facing a possibility of life in prison due to the fact of the intoxication and the fact that 4 people outside of crew died on the plane crash. Some of you may have remembered that film that came out about 8 years ago in 2012. What I want to talk about is character transformation in this video. In my book, The Secret of Life Through Screenwriting, I talk about character transformation. Our characters, just like everybody in life, are going through spiritual journeys. Whether you acknowledge that or not, whether or not you admit that or not, our souls are going through spiritual journeys here in this lifetime that we are incarnated in. Even if you are not a spiritual person, even if you don't acknowledge that you're going through a spiritual journey, your higher self and your soul is going through a spiritual journey, and it wants you to learn lessons during your incarnation as a human being in this lifetime. So just as we as human beings are going through a spiritual journey, just like we are going through a period of ascension and awakening, so do our characters. And in the movie Flight, the character Whip Whitaker, played by Denzel Washington, is going through a spiritual journey, even though you know that he doesn't realize that. He doesn't acknowledge that he's going through any type of spiritual journey. In my book, I talk about character transformation in terms of, when you are writing a screenplay, your character has an outer goal, okay? Your character has something tangible that they are trying to accomplish by the end of the story, something that they can actually possess. When I started writing screenplays, it was explained to me that the character's outer goal cannot be a feeling like, the character wants to feel happy by the end of the movie. Okay? If that's what you want your character to experience, is happiness at the end of the movie, how do you represent that in a tangible form? Okay? So anyway, back to Flight. The outer goal for Whip Whitaker by the end of the movie in Flight is basically not to go to prison. So he has a lawyer named Hugh, who's played by Don Cheadle, and then he has his friend Charlie, who is a union rep for the airline pilots. And Whip Whitaker is going through this journey and this transformation that he's going through. How I explain transformation in my book is that, when you are putting your character through a series of obstacles and a series of conflict, the outer goal at the end of the movie, the question to the outer goal, do they accomplish the outer goal, is either yes or no, okay? in terms of the outer goal, the answer could be no. You do not have to give your character the outer goal by the end of the movie. There are examples that I use in my book from movies like My Best Friend's Wedding. Julianne, played by Julia Roberts, does not get what she wants. She wants to break up Michael's wedding. Her best friend, who she dated, she wants to break up Michael and Kimmy's wedding. She doesn't get that by the end of the movie. She basically does what she came to do, which is to say goodbye. So Whip Whitaker doesn't necessarily get what he wants at the end of Flight. And that is basically to stay out of prison. But this is why his character experiences transformation. His character experiences transformation because by the end of the movie, you know, he's an alcoholic. He is a hardcore alcoholic. And they do a great job of showing this throughout the movie because pretty much in every scene, Whip is drinking alcohol. If he is not having a conversation with the union rep or his lawyer, he is 9 times out of 10 drinking alcohol or on his way to buy liquor or walking into a bar. He has a problem with this, even though they're telling him, you know, you're under a microscope. You might go to prison. You can't drink right now. And Whip is like, yeah, I got it. I can take care of it. I can handle it. Okay? His transformation is set up from scene 1. In scene 1, he is, you know, waking up after a hard night of partying. He has hooked up with his one of his flight attendants that he flies with. Her name is Trina Marquez. And he tells Trina, and this is how I can tell that they were setting up his transformation from scene 1. Because he says to Trina, you might be the next Mrs. Whitaker. Okay, this tells me that if it were just a hookup, he would not have said that to her. That line right there shows that she actually meant something to him. She was not just a hookup. Okay, and during the course of the plane crash, she dies. She is one of the crew members who loses her life. So the way the story is constructed, Hugh, the lawyer, gets the NTSB to throw out the toxicology report from Whip Whitaker's results. He finds some type of problem with the calibration on the machine that they use or everything like that. So he gets it thrown out. So by the end of the movie, they find 2 vodka bottles. Now, we know, the audience has seen that Whip was talking to the passengers on the plane, and while he's talking to them, he's pouring vodka into orange juice. He's mixing up the orange juice with the vodka. So we already know that Whip was the one who drank that vodka. And they tell him, you know, everything's fine. We're going to get away with it. Like, you know, you're going to be fine. You're not going to have to go to prison. But they did find 2 vodka bottles on the plane. And of course, the co-pilot, Margaret, the other stewardess, and Camilla, the other stewardess that dies, their toxicology reports come back clean. The only people who had alcohol in their system was Whip and Trina. So in the last scene where Whip is at the hearing with the NTSB, which is a federal agency, and what's at stake at this point is his career, his freedom. If he is found to have been intoxicated while flying the plane that crashed, he's going to go to prison. But the transformation comes when they ask him, you know, we had 2 toxicology reports that were run. One of them got thrown out. So is it to your knowledge that Trina Marquez had a drinking problem and she was the one who was drinking the vodka? And when the woman asked him that question, a big picture of Trina comes up on the screen. And, you know, he's faced with this moral decision. Do I lie and get away with being drunk and high on cocaine? Because he was frequently drunk. He obviously frequently flew the plane in an intoxicated state. He always drank and drive. And at this point, he's about to walk away Because according to him, it wasn't his fault anyway that the plane crashed. According to him, the problem is that the plane was old and fell apart. Okay. And honestly, the way the movie is written, it probably is because the plane was old and fell apart, which is the reason why it crashed, which is what makes it so interesting. It makes it so the audience is not necessarily against Whip, because they make it very clear that if anybody else had been flying the plane, because they did simulations after the plane crash happened, they tested 10 other pilots. Everybody else in simulations crashed the plane. So Whip did do something remarkable. He landed a plane and only 4 people lost their lives out of a passenger flight of 102 souls, including crew. So, at this point, he's faced with this moral dilemma. Does he lie and say that Trina was drinking the alcohol and that he himself was not intoxicated? Or does he tell the truth? And this is where the transformation comes from. The transformation, like I said, when you have an outer goal, the answer can be yes or no. Your protagonist doesn't have to get what they set out to get. And so in this case, he finally tells the truth. He finally admits for the first time in the whole story that he is an alcoholic. He finally admits that he's pretty much drunk every day. Not just the day of the accident, the day before that, the day before that, and the day before that. And the transformation comes because when you have transformation, which is your goal, okay? We don't just watch movies to see if the character is going to accomplish the outer goal or not. No, we watch movies for the transformation. Okay? Because I sincerely believe that movies should not just entertain us. Movies should be the keys to how we find happiness, how we deal with our problems and struggles and obstacles, and how we accomplish our dreams. It is my sincere belief that movies should do that. So the transformation for Whip Whitaker comes when he tells the truth, finally, and admits to himself out loud that he is an alcoholic. Okay, so when you are dealing with the outer goal answer can be no. So in this case, he does go to prison. So the question to the outer goal is Whip going to be able to avoid going to prison? The answer was no. He was not able to avoid going to prison. But the transformation, the inner purpose of the character, the inner thing that they're trying to get, the answer for that is always yes. Do they achieve their inner purpose? The answer to that is always yes, because you have to have transformation to have a good story. They can fail at getting their outer goal. They do not have to achieve their outer goal, but they should achieve their inner purpose. They should achieve character growth. And the transformation is what causes character growth. So the answer to that question for inner growth, for inner purpose, should always be yes. Whip Whitaker didn't know that he had inner growth that he needed to go through. But he knew it, but it was so subconscious that he wouldn't admit it. Okay, so his inner growth is being able to admit that he has a problem and being able to admit that he is an alcoholic. So the way they created his character, if you look at ancient Greek drama, the whole category of tragedy is when you have a character with such intense hubris. And hubris is extreme pride and arrogance. And that's the character Whip Whitaker. He was extremely prideful, extremely arrogant. And in Greek drama, hubris always leads to tragedy because it always causes the character's downfall. And Whip Whitaker was extremely prideful and unwilling to admit that he was an alcoholic. But how do we know that Whip internally didn't know that he had a problem? So what the screenwriters strategically did, they placed certain scenes spread out far enough away from each other so that it doesn't become preachy or on the nose. We know that Whip is not happy with his relationship with his son. We know that they have a strained relationship. And the screenwriters show this. In one scene, he's sitting at his father's childhood home. His VHS tape is in the TV, and he's watching old home videos of his son when his son was younger. And, you know, we already know that he and his son are not really on good terms. Then there's a scene much later in the film where Whip goes to his ex-wife's house and demands to see her, and not really her, but demands to see his son. At this point, his son is 15 years old, and he's like, I don't know who you are. Like, I don't know who you are. You're coming here. You're all drunk. You're always drunk. And, you know, Whip is saying, like, oh, you don't know me? You don't know me? And the son's like, no, who the F are you? Who the F are you? I don't know you. Get out of the house. We don't want you here. Blah, 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 blah. So that is the only indication that we know that Whip acknowledges on some level that he has a problem. Because if he didn't have an alcohol problem, he would have a relationship that was fine with his son. Okay? It's not until Whip goes to prison, gets sober, that he gets a relationship with his son. And they bring this point home, which is a little, I don't know, on the nose, a little cliche. But at the end of the movie, his son is writing a college paper, and, you know, he decides to write his college paper about his father, and it's like he finally gets a chance to know who his father really is, and his father, because he's finally sober, gets a chance to know who he is. So that is the transformation of Whip Whitaker in the movie Flight. Like I said, I have a whole section in my book, The Secret of Life Through Screenwriting, about transformation, about how the character, you know, like I said, your character can end up not getting their outer goal, but they do need to have inner growth. They do need to have some character growth in order to have that transformation, because that is truly what the audience goes to the movie to see. They go to see the character have a transformation, not necessarily to get their outer goal or not. That is almost irrelevant. But as long as you have character growth, you have something that the audience can become invested in, and you have something that the audience can experience, oh my God, what's that word? Catharsis. That's how the audience experiences catharsis, by the character experiencing inner growth and transformation. Thank you for joining me on my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you have been able to get some type of insight on how to create character growth, how to give a character transformation. If you like this video, please like it, share it out with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye. Have a great day.